If you guys enjoy this video, remember to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. With that being said, hello everyone, welcome back to another updated, remastered review of the Godzilla vs. Kong collection. My name is Matthew, and today we're continuing through the collection with the Skullcrawler. Now, originally I was going to do the Mechagodzilla next, but I wanted to do the Skullcrawler for kind of a few reasons. One, I feel like the Skullcrawler is a very underrated figure. I'm just gonna blow my thoughts right out of the way. And also, it took me like freaking ever to find this thing. Because the only reason I have it is because it was in a lot, and unfortunately, distribution where I am was a bit funky even up until Godzilla vs. Kong's release. So, hey, better late than never. Then again, I've had this figure for a few years, so. Also, I actually plan on buying another Skullcrawler soon, like a bootleg on AliExpress, and painting that into the 2017 Skullcrawler, since the ones that they have on selection aren't really like color-wise like, close to the Kong Skull Island version, the Ramarak version, or huge reptile, whatever. This is going to be the GVK1, or number 10, I think it's called. And ironic that Millie Bobby Brown's also in that scene, and she plays 11. So we found 10, guys. Didn't really need another Stranger Things season for that, huh? So with that said, let's go ahead and take a look at the Skullcrawler with HEAV. Also, sincerely, I do hope you guys can forgive me because I'm not in my usual setup right now. It's being taken over by family. But anyways, for the figure, it's going to be a completely new mold. This is not taken from the Leonard Kong Skull Island Skullcrawler, which is like a little dinky little thing. This is entirely its own unique sculpt, which I love. For the eyes, you actually have these eyes, which are painted yellow and have like the black slit that goes forward. So they are at least pointing forward. Can't really see that too well because my camera for some reason has major focusing issues. But for the front of the kind of skull cavity, we have a bit of a paint scuff, which I'm pretty sure is from me because my original video that had this guy didn't have that scuff, but I guess now it's here. I don't remember how he got the scuff. I was probably roughhousing with this thing. Then again, he was up on the shelf for like freaking ever. And so basically for the entire front half, it's going to be like this gray spray, which looks pretty well applied. Can't really mess that up too much. And then we have like these sets of teeth, which of course Skullcrawler's got to have some teeth. No teeth on the upper part of the jaw, nor the lower part. And they actually kind of cheapened out a bit, where they gave it like the sculpted in tongue, without giving it extra any teeth details, which I think was kind of a bit of a bummer. But at the very least, the tongue is well painted and definitely looks all right. Bottom actually has some really nice sculpted ridges and details and whatnot. And the elongated neck here looks very prehensile and very flexible. Although flexible to a kind of a fault, because from what I know, the Skullcrawler isn't really that durable. Even like this big one kind of got soloed by Mechagodzilla. But to be fair, he was getting blasted inside the mouth. So, with that said, the top of the head has like this red spray as opposed to more poopy brown type base. And it kind of goes all the way to the back here, where we can get more like the spine ridges of his more anorexic look to it. And definitely looks really well done. We also have some little lines of here, which I don't really think are scratches, but just more like natural flowy lines that the Skullcrawler would naturally have. Here for the shoulders, which yes, they are technically shoulders. They have pretty much a nice muscle and skin fiber detail, and it looks really nice. The claw here has 4 unique fingers here, and of course we have the very big elbow spike, which that would do some very big damage. And it looks really nice. I do like the detail and all the kind of more skin work done here. That's also going to be where the little stamp is. Copyright info is actually going to be at the bottom of the tail. Here for the kind of like midsection, you actually do get a lot of nice detail, though it is going to be made of that hard plastic. But the stomach detail does look rather nice and does get the job well done. And of course, going back to the top, we have that red spray that continues roughly all the way down to like the midsection of the tail. And then it kind of stops, which is kind of a bummer. I definitely kind of wish it did have the red spray going down. Like even the minifigure had that, but I don't understand why this... Did the minifigure have that? I'm gonna have to actually go look at my photos, but still, whatever. It went all the way down to the tip where, at first I thought my tail tip was broken, but you can actually see the mold line goes all the way through, so no, it is not broken, but does feature some basic, dullish detail. I mean, of course, it makes sense that the detail would get like less and less pronounced as the tail goes through. But this is one lengthy tail. Like all things considered, like we'll talk about more in the size references. But this is actually a pretty long Playmates figure. I think it's the longest they've ever released in the 6-inch scale. I could be wrong about that. Could be wrong. But yeah, as it stands, this Skullcrawler at least has some very good, like, you can grip it very well and let your kids, like, go to town with, like, playing with this thing. So that's a plus at least. But for the overall color scheme, you also get some more, like, red on the sides here. Forgot to mention. More faint because they're kind of sprayed on, but you can definitely still see it. And as for the bottom section of the tail here, copyright info, but really there's nothing else to really talk about as far as the sculpted paint's concerned. So when it comes to the actual sculpted details, it's not bad. It's very simplistic and it gives you what you want from a basic Skullcrawler. Do I think that there could have been some improvements? Yeah, technically speaking. For one, I definitely think that the plastic quality in some parts is a bit jarring, going from soft to hard, then to soft. Kind of a softer plastic, and then a really rubbery plastic, all things considered. But I would say that of the original line, this is probably the best well built as far as like consistency goes. Because I don't think I would accidentally try to shear this off like I would say with Godzilla's dorsal plates or something. That actually, that actually feels relatively secure. So build quality gets a point, and sculpt and paint at least is good. So for sculpt and paint, again, it's nothing too spectacular. Like it doesn't have any claw paint, no paint on the arms, no paint on the tail, no paint on the other side. It's kind of just here and here at the face. So I'm gonna have to give that a 7. Sculpted details are fine. It's serviceable. It's nice. But aside from an inaccurate tongue, it does look at least alright. Next up, we're gonna talk about is the jaw, which the jaw can shut about that far, go open way more than it needed to, kind of like the Shimo. It's kind of weird that the quadruped lizards, aside from Doug, can all open their mouths like wide like this. Like as far as Playmates is concerned. Swivel hinge shoulders, so you can actually get some nice movement up, down, and then rotate. Although my left shoulder is a bit loose, it can barely hold it because like it's very easy to move out of place. And the elbow here is on a swivel hinge, so you can go bend in, bend out, and rotate from side to side. And for the midsection, which has a very loose ball joint, you go up, down, left, right, and you can go all the way around like that. Rotate to your heart's content. And yeah, that's basically for posability. Nothing at the waist, nothing at the head, nothing at the wrists or head. There is a seam line, and it looks like you can move it, but that is, much like Godzilla, a big square peg, so I would not recommend moving that. Otherwise, you're going to just snip that right off. So for sculpt paint, we already did it. Articulation, I'm going to have to give the Skullcrawler, I would have to give him maybe about a, no, that seems a little, 7.5. I feel like the articulation that he has now is very good. And it's definitely, at the time, minus the HIYA stuff, the most posable Skullcrawler, given the competition. That's not saying much, but that's technically still true. And I do like how we have a jaw hinge, nearly fully posable shoulder, and a prehensile swivel tail. That said, I definitely think that the figure could be maybe used like a head joint or a waist joint or maybe in a wrist joint to really kind of push that. But for what it is, it's fine. Next up, we're going to talk about accessories, which, much like the title of the figure suggests, it comes with a silver HEAV. I think, trying to think to myself, no. Okay, I was confusing the one that came with the Hollow Earth set that would come after this, but it is essentially a gray HEAV. Same one that comes with the Mechagodzilla, except that one's green, this one's gray. Has a metallic window and is entirely hollow on the inside, so you can kind of squish that. But of course, here's the detail all around, as you can tell. And yeah, it looks pretty nice. Only problem is the Skullcrawler can't really do anything with it. You can rest on top of it, rest to the side, put it in its mouth, but aside from that, it doesn't really do anything. Like, that's ultimately my biggest problem, is that if the figure can't use the accessory, what's the point in having it? I get it, it was just to give him something, but here's a better alternate idea for an accessory. See this jaw? Let's carve this out, put some more fake teeth in there, and put like a peg hole in the same way that Godzilla has a peg hole in his throat, and then put in a prehensile extended tongue. That would have been a lot better than the HEAV we got. But I'm not saying the HEAV is bad. I'm saying it's done pretty well. Plus, I think the movie had like, what, 2-3 HEAVs? But I'm just saying, because the Skullcrawler and the HEAV were never on screen together, that kind of defeats the whole purpose of it, right? So ultimately, again, I feel like they could have emptied out all of this, put a hole atop of here, and allowed for like a rubberized extended tongue and go to town tonguing things. But at the very least, it's serviceable and gets the job done for what job you want for an accessory. Then again, it can't really use it. So for accessory, I'm going to have to give a 5 out of 10. Again, it's not a bad accessory as far as the HEAV itself. As an accessory, doesn't really relate to the Skullcrawler and doesn't really do anything here. So, yeah, sorry, that's a bit cruel, so we're going to bump that up to a 5.5, I feel like. That's at least a bit better. But I wasn't done with the accessories, because we're going to go over the battle damage, which, as you can tell, the battle damage here is very, very gruesome, but also, in my personal opinion, the least realistic looking, because whether Kong or Godzilla's looked at least organic in the way that it could rip off, because of how sharp and jagged the cuts are. Because look at that. This you can kind of get around, and then it just goes jagged down and just does not look that realistic. I get it, I'm talking about realism on a figure like this, but the ribs at least look nice. Like, the spine has a lot of gruesome detail and it's all painted red. And this entire section is molded in a rubberized plastic, so you can realistically get it on and off as you please. So, just to kind of throw this in, battle damage, I would honestly kind of elevate the score to a 6.5. Because again, it's not done the best. I feel like it could have been done a tad bit better, but at least the Skullcrawlers has battle damage. And for some size comparisons, and the only size comparisons I'm going to be doing in this video, because I really don't want to go back and forth in my collection and whatnot. Here it is between the Mechagodzilla with HEAV and the Kong with Battle Axe. So, as far as the scale, it's definitely not in scale, because the Skullcrawler technically should be way a bit smaller than this. But for like a general playtime scale, this works, because you have a well-sized Skullcrawler to scale up with, like go toe-to-toe with your Mechagodzilla or your Kong. And just to kind of summarize the difference between the HEAVs, Mechagodzilla's, Skullcrawler's HEAV. I think one of my HEAVs had a defect. Yeah, this one's at more of a slant than this one is. But aside from that, everything is about the same except for the color and the color of the windshield. And also, just to talk about the length of the figures, the Skullcrawler is actually a bit longer than that of the Mechagodzilla. You can definitely see that there. There you go. And yeah, that is going to be it for the size comparisons. And so overall, what do I think of this figure? I definitely think that overall, like, the Skullcrawler, it's not a bad figure. And honestly, even in 2025, 5 years after this figure came out, it's still not bad to this day. It's got some decent posability, decent sculpt, where there's paint, good paint applications, and the accessories are serviceable to be there, but they don't really serve a purpose. That said, to really kind of like round out the scores, I honestly have to give the overall figure a 7 out of 10. I feel like that's fair, because it's not the best in the Playmates line, and certainly not the best in like the world of Godzilla and Kong collecting, but On its own merits, it's certainly serviceable. Do I recommend this figure in 2025? No. Why? Simple. Playmates has basically neglected this thing. I have not seen a reissue of this since it went live. I don't even know if it even like joined in the MonsterVerse new array of Titans, because now they're coming out with more like the Frostbark Monarch Legacy of Monsters, a Burning Godzilla, a King of the Monsters poster Mothra. Yet no sign of the Skullcrawler returning in sight, huh? Unless I'm being stupid and it was shown there. I don't actually remember, but that's what I know. But with that said, the aftermarket prices for this guy are not typically too high. So look on secondhand sites like Facebook Marketplace for resales, because that's where I know some people have found theirs. I actually saw one on a lot of like dinosaurs. I don't know if it came with the HEAV, and I don't know if it came with the battle damage, and I certainly don't know if it was complete with the tail, but who knows? That tail loves to pop up. Just like, look at how easy this is. Barely any effort. But with that said, that's all I have for this video. If you guys enjoyed it, definitely leave a like. If you want to support indie content creators and small content creators alike, like myself, then go down in the description and donate to my Ko-fi, starting from $1 USD. And you can donate from how much you see please. It can be a one-time donation, monthly donation. It doesn't matter. So as long as you at least consider donating. But with that said, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out, everyone. And so overall, what do I think of this figure? I definitely think that, oh shoot.